Okay, so I will call the meeting to order, this special meeting of the POCD subcommittee for Thursday, June 16 at 6:02 p.m. We have a full subcommittee, Adam and Mark and Karen and I. And the agenda item 3A is the approval of the special meeting minutes of May 9th, which we did not do when we got together last time. So I would, I have a single comment to them, which I'll make now before we move. Is that okay?
Sure.
Only on the top of page 2. My soapbox is right here next to me. So we should change the second line from affordable housing plan to the housing plan. If
Okay.
that's okay with everybody.
Yep.
And that's the only comment that I'll make. If anybody else has any comments before we entertain a motion to amend as approve as amended.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
Any further discussion? And all those in favor, so signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Great, motion carries, it's unanimous. And the next agenda item is
Before you
4A,
do that,
which is
Before you do that, I wanted to mention to Donna, when you go to the meeting folder, the date for this meeting is 6/19 instead of 6/16.
Oh, okay.
So that-
Okay. I'll change that. No, I'll change that.
great.
Thanks,
Anything
Adam.
else before you give it anything else?
No, I'm sorry for interrupting, Matt. I wanted to.
Oh, no, thanks.
No.
Matt.
Thanks.
Then we'll go to, hold on, I just lost it. Agenda item 4A, which is review of the procedure for public hearing to be held on June 30, 2022. And Donna, as we get started, did you say you had not heard from Wes?
I had heard from Wes. He was not going to be able to make it because he's got his brother is coming in from out of town, and one of his daughters was coming down. So I told him, I said, basically it'll be recorded. You can watch the recording when you get a chance. So this way he'll know what the process is going to be.
So procedurally, that's the public informational meeting on June 30 is it's a commission meeting, right?
Yes.
So Wes will call us to order. Wes will be acting in his capacity as chair. And Wes will, I think, just run it, right? Unless you think Wes is going to want to turn it over to me as the POCD subcommittee, or can we just leave it to Wes to introduce Glenn and start that process?
Yeah, I don't, I mean, I can ask him how he wants to do it, but I think either way will work. I don't see why it has to be.
I don't think it matters that much, but it's the Planning and Zoning Commission that really puts on this meeting. We're the subcommittee to the Planning and Zoning Commission as Planning and Zoning commissioners. So I don't know if that means that Wes should start the meeting and introduce Glenn, because it's the POC, it's the P&Z that's putting on the show.
Right.
That's what I think. So I think that it should be a P&Z meeting. So the subcommittee is there to answer any questions and to participate, but as far as the procedure goes, it's a regular P&Z meeting. Okay, good.
Cool.
And really, if it's anything like the one we did 10, 12 years ago, Glenn ends up kind of running it anyway. I guess that was a reg rewrite, but whatever, once we get going, then Glenn is doing his presentation and he's on a roll.
And I think that's great. So is that okay with you, Glenn, that we very quickly go through our business and then pass it on to you?
Absolutely. I think that I've put together already the PowerPoint, the draft, and if you'd like tonight, I'd like to just kind of roll through it with you quickly. I think you're mostly familiar with the plans. I don't think I need to sort of do a dry run as if I'm actually presenting it, but just explain to you the sequence of the slides is going through to set the stage for public comments. There's about 30 slides in the PowerPoint, but I'm generally fairly quick with slides, and my experience has been 30 slides is about 15 minutes. So how does that sound to you guys in terms of time period? Or let me back up. If you'll allow me to go through the slides, think about the amount of material on the slides. And I can make it kind of a higher level, but I wasn't quite sure the experience or the information that people will have had a chance to gather before this meeting. So I wanted to try to strike a balance. So if it's okay with you, do you want me to just start going through it? And then you guys can either interrupt along the way or save comments to the end? Does that sound like a plan?
I just have
Yep.
a question. I mean, I thought this meeting is not informational, right? We're not telling the public what's in the plan. The presumption is that they've looked at it and have comments, right?
It's not a public hearing on adoption, Mark. So in my experience, I do call it, I believe I have called it an informational meeting or a community meeting. And the purpose is to get people's reaction and comments, which would now allow the subcommittee and the commission to make tweaks to the plan as we head towards the public hearing. And I think that once you would get to the public hearing, you're right. People should be familiar with the plan at that time, and they should submit more formal comments or more formal communications to the commission about changes or things that they favor or they're concerned about, et cetera. So my general experience is this type of meeting is a little bit more conversational and give people an opportunity to pat us on the back or tell us to go back to the drawing boards on things, et cetera, and give us the opportunity to do that before we head for the public hearing on adoption.
So I know at least some of the stakeholders, they're looking at this, I think, more like this is their opportunity to hear about the Pocd. They've been working on it themselves, and they're going to offer up their comments, whether they do it written or they do it there. But I think a lot of people are, at least the stakeholders, the land trusts and the Conservation Commission and places like that, they're well working on this.
And I think that's great, because I think getting those comments now, if we were sort of closer to the adoption, I view the adoption process as kind of a funnel moving towards consensus on the document. So getting comments now, being able to consider them, I think is helpful to us to make a plan that is cognizant of everybody's thoughts or feelings. We, as the commission, may not agree on some of these, but on the other hand, certainly we've had a chance to consider them. And I think that that's going to make a better plan in the long run. Ready for me to go?
I think so, yes. Mark, that answers your question?
It does. I'm sure you have the sense from prior sessions. I just have no patience for this. And me, if people want to comment, that's great, but they should have read the plan. I wouldn't think that we need to explain to them what's in the plan, but I'm sure those questions can be asked. Like, what's the plan say about, Wi-Fi? I don't know. I mean, and I would assume that that is not a function of this meeting for us to defend the plan. If somebody has comments that, it's too vague. Okay, thank you for your comment. We'll take that into consideration. I mean, but I don't know, Glenn, if that's what's done.
I think, Mark, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think the idea is some people will come to this meeting because they heard about it and they don't have a clue what a POCD is all about or even what's in it. And other people, as Adam indicated, will have done their homework and have very specific commentary. And it may include, you know, specific recommendations. It may include some criticisms of the plan. But I think, again, my sense is the purpose of that, as you point out, is thank you for your comment. And we'll take it under consideration and take another look at the plan and see if we think changes are appropriate. And then move ahead for adoption in the fall. I think that works well. People will know they've had a chance to be heard, and I think that makes adoption simpler.
Glenn, I don't know if you have this in your slides or you do this anyway. I don't know if it's worth at the beginning explaining what a POCD is and explaining what it isn't.
Yep.
You know, people think we're supposed to have come up with the ways all these things are supposed to happen or be fixed, or which is not what the Planning and Zoning Commission does.
Yeah, so I think, Adam, if you let me get started here, because you just described slides 3, 4, and 5.
Great.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
So I'm going to keep the slide. I mean, I don't know how you guys have your screen set up, but I have the speakers on the right-hand side of the screen. If I go full screen, part of the slide is going to get cut off. So I'm just going to leave it here. And is that okay with everybody, the scale and everything else?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Fine.
Yes.
All right, so this is just a basic welcome to everybody. It's a community meeting on the draft plan of conservation and development. Our program for tonight is what is a POCD, give an overview of the draft POCD for Kent, seek community input, and then explain to people what the next steps are going to be in the overall plan process. So this section, again, what is a POCD? Basically, it's an advisory document to help guide a community into the future. It outlines strategies to help make Kent an even better place. It doesn't dictate what an organization or entity must do. It's not like a set of regulations that says shall and will, et cetera. And part of the reason for that is there's different types of plans. At the highest level, we have what we would call a strategic plan, which is looking at ways to kind of frame consensus and get consensus on future directions for the community. And this is very much the type of plan that occurs in a public setting, a government-based organization. Other types of plans can include tactical plans and operational plans, which get much more specific in terms of what could happen or should happen or will happen in the future. But that's not where we're at right now. We're looking to establish the consensus for the community in the future. Generally speaking, when it comes to plans, people want more specificity in a plan when they're familiar with working in hierarchical settings, like in the military or in corporations. They want the plan to tell other people what to do, and they are anxious to get started on implementation. And that's a good thing. But also people want more flexibility in a plan when we're in consensus situations, which is such as government, where different boards or commissions have independent statutory authority. But people also want more flexibility when they want agreement on what should be done. And they also want the plan to be adaptable to changing circumstances in the future. And so it's important to take a step back and think about the real purpose of a plan and the measures of success of a plan. And based on my experience, the best measure of success of a plan is not its creation, but actually it's the follow through and the implementation that comes from that plan. And that's a good lead in to the way the plan has been constructed. In each of the chapters in the plan, we've identified policies and action steps to guide the commission, the community in the future. And leaders and partners have been identified. So this is ways that people will specifically get guidance on how to proceed with the plan. So in terms of the plan itself, the plan is broken up into 6 major sections. The first of which is an introduction, going over much of the information I've just described. There's a conclusion at the end. And the intermediate sections are policy chapters in the plan or thematic issues that the plan addresses. The first of which is sustainability and resiliency. Then there's discussions about community assets, discussion about development related strategies, and then infrastructure strategies. And the conclusion section at the end does include implementation overall. So in terms of the introduction, there's three basic sections that are contained in here. There's an overview of prior plans and the process that the commission and the subcommittee used in preparing this plan and explaining how the plan is organized. There's an overview of conditions and trends, and then discussion about our survey and community issues or concerns. And I think realistically, there's two things to focus on as part of that. I mean, I think one of the things that's going to be dramatic in Kent in the future and something for the community to continue to think about and work on is the changing age composition of the community. It's really kind of surprising when you think about it that the median age in the community has increased over the last 40 years by almost 20 years. And in fact, if we chart it on a graph, we can see that it's rising somewhat dramatically. Kent is not the community in Connecticut with the oldest average age, but it's way up there. In terms of that, and that has implications for the community and the types of services and things that may be needed or desired in the future. The Kent of the future will be different than the Kent of today, and so these are issues for us to think about. The plan has also been guided by the community survey that we did. We identified a number of questions that we wanted to ask people. One of them was to ask people about what they're proud about and sorry about in the survey. Things that people indicated they were proudest of were the feel of the community overall, its physical character and appearance, the town center. These are things that made people proud to be Kent residents. When we asked people what they were sorry about, what they indicated was businesses, and I think the comments really related to lack of businesses or what's happened with the economic circumstances we've been in through COVID, recreational services, and again, the town center, because of issues that they think can or should be addressed. But the commission also asked a question about importance and performance. How important were issues to people in the community, and how good a job do residents or participants feel that the town was doing on these? And then we grouped these strategies together and found out there were things that were very important. People felt the town was doing a very good job on. Things that were important where the town wasn't doing such a good job. Areas less important where the people felt the town was doing a good job. And then areas which are lower importance, but lower performance as well. And some of these guided our efforts as part of the plan overall. First major thematic element of the plan is sustainability. It's a new element in the Kent POCD. It was kind of touched on in the last plan, but not really to the extent that sustainability has grown as an issue overall. And the plan looks at the concept of sustainability in sort of 5 different ways, because everybody defines sustainability a little bit differently. So sustainability in the plan deals with the issue about climate and climate change and the concept of climate sustainability. Also the concept of ecological sustainability, clean air, clean water, diverse habitats, energy sustainability in terms of energy use and renewable sources of energy, social sustainability in terms of our changing age composition, the fewer residents, younger residents overall, and age-related needs, and then economic sustainability in terms of employment or jobs, goods and services, et cetera. And it's hard to measure sustainability, so the plan identifies the activities recommended by Sustainable CT, which Kent is working on addressing their sustainability guidelines to help Kent move forward in this direction. Another section in the plan, which is also new, is the concept of resiliency. In past decades, people sort of felt the world was a stable place and tomorrow was going to be better than today, but there were issues to address. We now recognize that there can be threats or issues or hazards which can affect the community. And so the town has undertaken hazard mitigation strategies in conjunction with the Northwest Hills region. And the plan supports the concepts about identifying these risks, avoiding exposure, minimizing and mitigating potential impacts, and being prepared to respond to things when they happen. I think there's likely to be federal, state and federal funding available in the future in this area. And I think raising this prominently up front, it would help Kent be able to access those funds. The next major section or element of the plan is all about community assets. There's a lot of different ways that this thematic element of the plan, we're number one. People felt that this was very important to them. The town was doing a great job for most of these areas. The plan advocates and recommends for continuing these sorts of efforts with the organizations that Kent is fortunate to have, as Adam indicated earlier, the Conservation Commission, the Land Trust. There's a lot of different entities that are doing good jobs here, and they should continue to be encouraged to do those things. So the various elements of this theme include protecting natural resources, and almost all of these elements have one or more maps in the plan to identify what resources are located where to help us in these efforts. In addition to protecting natural resources, the plan recommends preserving open space, promoting farms and farming, preserving cultural resources, and maintaining and enhancing community character. And again, the maps point out the areas which are important to us and will continue to be important in the future. Next major thematic element is the development section of the plan. There are three key parts to this, one of which is Kent's Village Center, guiding business and economic development, and guiding residential development. And I think there's important things to discuss in each of these particular sections of the plan. In terms of Kent's Village Center, the plan celebrates the character, ambiance, and attractiveness of Kent's Village Center overall. There are some maps and graphics in the plan intended to highlight opportunity areas in the village center. But there's also 2 pages of principles and concepts that the commission can use to guide future activities in the town center area, and some specific recommendations, one of which, for example, is how we could deploy charging stations in and around the town center area to merge the concept of sustainability with our desire to maintain and enhance the overall vitality and functionality of the village center area. The section in the plan about guiding business and economic development. I think this is an area which is important to everybody, but there's no clear leadership or direction as to who's in charge of this particular issue. So the plan suggests that we continue to support these types of things, particularly because of the strong activity with home-based businesses, small businesses in Kent, and also the policies related to avoiding, for example, strip development, which has been a long-held principle in Kent overall. The plan suggests we take another look at the zoning in 2 particular areas, one of which is the industrial zone on Maple Street, just to make sure that we're going to be able to make most effective use of the limited area we have for industrial development. And then also in the Bowles Bridge area, just to confirm that the rules, regulations, and zoning extent that we have in this area is also what we would like to proceed with in the future. The other section of the plan is about guiding residential development. The vast majority of land in Kent is zoned for residential development. Kent for many years has soil-based zoning, which really helps relate land use density and intensity to the character of the land. And so those rules are likely to help the community again in the future. The issues going forward are not related to that type of regulation, but the fact that housing has become less and less affordable over time. And Kent, like all 168 other municipalities in the state, is in the process of preparing a housing plan. And that housing plan is the major recommendations of the plan have been incorporated into the POCD for consideration and action in the future. So we're trying to get symmetry between the POCD and that particular housing plan. This is likely to be an area of additional work in the future. The other section of the plan relates to infrastructure. This includes community facilities and services, roadway circulation, pedestrian, bicycle, and transit, and utility infrastructure. In the area of community facilities and services, we did an overview of the different facilities and services in town and identified which ones seem to be in good shape for the next 10 years or so. Areas that there might be some things to work on, and then facilities that were not expected to be adequate for community needs to 2035. The two major findings here overall is, one of them is the Kent Memorial Library, which is already working on modification, expansion, improvement. And it's such an important anchor in town. That's something to be celebrated. And the other one is that Parks and Recreation is in the process of preparing a master plan. So we jockeyed around between whether indicating that, as residents had pointed out in the survey, not expected to be adequate for community needs for the next 13 to 15 years or so, but it's currently blue, and we're going to continue to monitor that going forward. The plan has a whole section about roadway circulation. Kent has a roadway system that has evolved over the years to meet community needs. The state and town are aware of safety issues in a couple of areas, and the plan recommends that we continue to look at those while maintaining the overall character of the community, because most of what we perceive as character is often what we see from roadways. So we don't want to improve roadways in a way that's going to harm the overall character. And then also to manage surfaces on town roads. Roads are expensive to maintain. We've got 73 miles of paved roads in Kent and 15 miles of unpaved roads, both of which have their unique maintenance needs. And we want to continue to do that in the most cost-effective manner. The plan advocates for enhancing pedestrian, bicycle, and transit services. Some of the roads are identified by the state on this map on the left-hand side as being least or most suitable for bicycle use. Some of those roads are perhaps most appropriate for more experienced cyclists, but I do think that cycling and trails in the community are a real opportunity for Kent. And so the plan advocates for enhancements and improvements in that direction. The section on the plan about utility infrastructure, we are fortunate to have public water and public sewer in the Kent Village area. There is work going on at the sewer plant to maintain its capacity. There's ample discharge capacity for the anticipated community needs, but that's an important maintenance function. In terms of storm drainage, we're looking at low impact drainage techniques for the future. The two other issues which are significant and came up in the survey is broadband capacity, which people rely on more and more these days in terms of working from home or communicating with others in a lot of different ways. And so it was strongly represented in the survey that people wanted to enhance that capacity. And also in terms of wireless communications, we're fortunate to get from the state Siting Council a map showing coverage of cellular service in Kent overall. The green areas are served by existing towers. The gray areas were identified based on a tower under construction and how that service will be improved. But you can see from the white that there's still some dead spots in town and sections of Route 7 and other areas where perhaps there could be improvements. This is becoming more and more important in people's lives. So the plan also includes some possible telecommunications policy and siting principles, which could help us in the future as towers or cellular communication devices come along. The last major section of the plan has to do with consistency with state and regional plans, and it is generally consistent with those plans. And then implementation. The different sections of the plan identify different agencies, leaders, and partners in terms of who's responsible for doing what. And then the implementation efforts will focus also in on when. It's anticipated that once the plan is adopted, an Excel table will be created to assist with and facilitate POCD implementation. So that's an overview of the plan and the recommendations within it. Oftentimes when reviewing a plan, people sometimes desire stronger verbs or weaker verbs. But in terms of comments and input, any advice, if you will, on the strengths of the recommendations would be welcome. So thank you very much for that. And with that, open the meeting up for community input. I think I'd either turn it back to you, Matt, or Wes if he's chairing. So that was, how was that about, no, maybe that was 15 or 20? How did it feel for length and content?
I think it was spot on. It could be, you know, it seemed, I think you were moving quickly, Glenn, because we had heard it before. I suspect it'll take you a little bit longer to make it through, but I think the content is adequate. I think it's good. I think that it's going to, I think everybody should come and listen to just that 15 minutes or 20 minutes, so that they understand what the plan is and what's in the plan, and then they can go home. I mean, not that they should go home, but if everybody heard just that talk, they would fully understand the purpose and the intent and the contents of the POCD. So I think I liked it. I think it's
Thank
good.
you, Matt. I think my goal was that oftentimes people have a particular issue which is important to them. So they show up wanting to think and just talk about that one issue. I think it's important for them to start to appreciate and understand the various different dimensions that the commission has to think about and grapple with in terms of the plan and put it all into context. So it's not just about one thing, it's how that one thing fits into everything. And so given that overall picture, I think will help people appreciate that a little bit better.
Karen or Mark or Adam, you guys have any comments for Glenn in terms of the presentation?
I thought it was great, honestly. I know that I also assume that it'll go a little slower when it doesn't have to go a lot slower, but a little slower with people who don't know or aren't as well versed. And we've all been through the six of us have been through the POCD quite a bit, and everybody on the Planning and Zoning Commission has been through it. Once this is done, is that where you start to open? Do you open up to comments, or is it going to be a kind of a Q&A?
I think what I would normally do, Adam, is turn back to either Matt or Wes and say, okay, that's an overview of the plan. I think I could leave the last slide up, which was community input or community feedback, but I think it's best when we have a gallery, if you will, of people on the screen, so that everybody can kind of see everybody else. And then we'll see the hands go up or whatever. But I think the most important thing is to give people just an opportunity to start. You know, if somebody wants to start talking about sidewalks on day one, okay, that's fine. Somebody wants to launch into, you know, wireless service or open space or, you know, land trust trails. I think whatever people might want to do. So I don't try to structure it. I just kind of let it flow and take note of the comments and feedback. So that would be my suggestion.
I think you will get that whole breadth of everything. Who knows what because anybody who talks is going to have a comment about whatever the issue that's most important to them at that moment.
So some communities do a time limit. They say, okay, listen, everybody gets 3 minutes, if you will, or 5 minutes, or 3 is actually more time than you realize. But if people have their thoughts organized, say, look, everybody gets 3, and after people have had a chance to speak, then we'll come back, and if people have more things they'd like to say, they can have another 3. But if somebody was to take the next 15 or 20 minutes and sort of dominate the conversation. So some communities have a culture of doing this and some communities don't, but I just wanted to throw that out as I don't know how you guys normally do your public hearings or public meetings that way.
Donna, are you going to, anticipating that there'll be a lot of people on this and anticipating that maybe there's going to be a lot of comments, are you going to going to measure, I mean, have everybody, people have to raise their hand. I believe when they raise their hand, because you're the host, you can see who's number 1 and who's number 10.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to go through in line and say, okay, you're number 1. And so, and
Right.
direct Matt or Wes, whoever to, okay, so John so-and-so is number 1, and then tell them who the next person is and the next person. And
Right. I mean, I don't really know how many people are going to be here, maybe 50. You know, I'm anticipating 50 tops. I don't think there's going to be more than that.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and like you said, when people raise their hand, it's done in sequentially. So I'll see as they show up on my screen, you know, who goes first, and then they lower their hand and then they're gone. So
Right.
we've never given anybody a time limit to speak. Typically, John, we used to say, you know, okay, we'll let you speak. Please keep it brief. And let's not rehash things that have already been talked about. Let's, you know, so that everybody has an opportunity to speak. And we'll let everybody go through the conversation first. And then if you have other comments at the end of that, then we'll start taking people coming back twice or 3 times or however many times. And that they seem to abide by that. You know, I mean, I think that one of the best things about Zoom is that you can take somebody and just dump them into the waiting room. So, you know, or you can just mute them. So, but in anticipation,
You're tough.
I am. Yeah, I don't like to put up with any of the crap. So, John was always much better than I was, more patient. So,
I guess I'm still curious. Are we just taking comments, or is this going to be, you know, back and forth between the commission and the comment? Like, for every piece of information that's on those slides, somebody's going to say, oh, it was like 15 miles of unpaved roads. Like, I want the road paved in my house, and I've been asking that for 10 years. And why aren't you guys requiring all the roads in Kent to be paved? What's the response to that? Is going to be a reasoned, you know, it's expensive, and or is it just going to be, thanks for your comment, next?
I think if the commission would allow me, I think what I always try to accomplish at a public meeting is to convert a statement like you just said, Mark, into a comment, or a question into a comment. So you're in favor of more paved roads, fewer dirt roads. Thank you very much. Got it. And move on. So the issue is, why did you guys not do this? Or how come you guys don't do that? Or how come the town does? So your comment is you'd like to promote sustainability. Got it. Thank you very much. And then move on. So I think I can step in, not to take anything away from the commission, but almost be the master of ceremonies to let people know that we've heard them, validate their expression, if you will, and turn it into a comment rather than an inquisition. I think that's the way to make it productive. And I can do that because nothing for me on this is personal. It's all about what's the best policy for Kent.
Great.
I'll thank everybody for their comments. I'm excited to see what we got.
That'll be great.
Yeah, and I think I think it would be great to acknowledge that we had received some comments prior to the informational meeting, and we will look at all those comments and incorporate, you know, we'll discuss it as a commission and incorporate those comments as appropriate, right? Because I think we've asked the stakeholders to provide comments, and I think the majority of the meetings that I've listened to, at least so far, as Adam said, are leaning towards getting that information, providing that information before the informational meeting. Some of them might opt to read their letters into the record. I don't think that they'll ultimately end up doing that. But I think Glenn is right, that in order for this plan to be, you know, accepted and to be successful going forward, everybody sort of has to feel, everybody has to feel like they had a say in its creation, which is what we've been asking for since we started. So I like Glenn's idea. I think, Mark, you're right. It's a mistake to try to answer questions during, it will be a mistake to try to answer questions during the informational meeting, that we should, take all the information that we get and then bring it back to the as a commission, and we'll spend another month discussing what should go in the POCD and what shouldn't, what changes should be made, what changes shouldn't. A lot of the comments that I've heard, certainly I listened to a couple of commission meetings over the last couple of days, and they, for the most part, are really positive. I mean, they're collaborative, and the ideas that are going to come out of those are leaning towards that collaboration, as opposed to the initially sort of toxic comments that we got. So I think everybody's coming together in a collaborative way, which is what I'm hoping that the informational meeting will turn into, just collaboration with the town.
I realize I haven't had a chance to ask the commission this question yet, but in a normal scenario, what we might announce at the end of the meeting is that if the meeting is on June 30th, people have until July 5th. Or I don't know, I'll take a look at the calendar to get any supplemental comments in. In other words, we're not going to necessarily slam the door at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock or whatever. The issue is if you think of something and tomorrow morning, send us an email. You have until Wednesday. Because I think what I plan on doing is taking notes at the meeting, may listen to the meeting again to make sure I got the notes correct, and organize them for the committee. So I can get them out to you a week in advance of our meeting. And generally, it'll be much like we did on the zoning regulations. There'll be one column to identify the comment. It'll be organized by chapter or section of the plan. There will be sort of, I guess, the nature of the comment or description of it, and then a possible response by the commission. Okay, so if somebody says, I think we should have wind turbines on every street. It's like, wait a second, industrial scale wind turbines. It's like, okay, we heard your comment. We recognize what you're saying, but my comment to the commission might be something like, probably we may not want to do that, but we do have comments to support wind energy. So in other words, to try to give you a sense of how comments could be converted into something in the plan that you might think is a great idea. Or, we're not necessarily going to agree with some and disagree with others, but from the nature of the comments, how can we make the plan better? And I think build on that spirit of collaboration. So would it be okay if as part of the presentation, or maybe you, Matt, or Wes, that say something like, you got until July 6th or whatever the day would be to get any final comments in?
I think that's a great idea to put sort of a, like, as you say, don't close it at the end of the informational meeting, but to give, a week or two or however long, listen, you guys, you've heard all the comments, you've seen the presentation of the plan. If you've got any additional comments, please get them to us as soon as you can, but certainly by X date. I think that's a great idea.
So if our next meeting was going to be 3 or 4 weeks later, right? So towards the end of July, I'd like to have, let's say, 1 week for people to get their comments in, 1 week for me to get all the comments organized, and then you guys, the commission, to have a week to see the comments and say, okay, yep, I can see a pathway forward on this. So I think that's just a calm and organized approach to get everything together. So let's try to stay a week.
So week would be, are we going to say, so Friday, July 8th? Because this is the 30th, the meeting's on Thursday, the 30th. So it gives people a week during that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a week. That's like 7 or 8 days. Yes.
Right. Well, I picked the 8th just because it was a Friday. It was the end of the day, and it didn't extend it through the weekend.
Yeah, I think that works very well. The next week I can get it all organized and get it back to Donna to get to the committee and the commission. And then a week to kind of look through it and say, yeah, okay, I got it. I see, I have a sense of what we're going to be doing here. And I think that would work well.
And so just following that through a little bit, we're getting it to the commission it seems to me that it's a commission task to go through any changes that get made to the POCD after the public informational meeting. I just want to know whether that's proper thinking or whether those things come back to the subcommittee for review and then presentation to the full commission.
I think that can work as well. I mean, I think you guys let me know what you would like to do, but I think if the comments come in, Matt, I can organize them as quickly as I can, get them back to this committee. And you can look at my suggested approach to these, ignore these, do these, talk about these, and sort of recalibrate those. And then we can share that with the full commission. I'm fine with that as well.
I have an opinion on that. I think that we should do it, and I'll tell you why. I think we should have it come to the POCD subcommittee first. Mostly because our P&Z meetings are long. And I think that some of these comments may spur 10-minute conversations about whether how we're going to deal with it, and some of them won't. But it can spill into an hour-long discussion depending on how much we're going through or more. And I don't want it to happen during regularly scheduled meeting because they go long enough.
Gotcha.
Well, I think, go ahead, Karen.
I was going to say the other thing, just to back Adam up on that, is that the way I look at it is the zoning commission has put us in charge of this. They have assigned us this task. So I think if we follow Glenn's lead and, listen to his suggestions and it comes back to us, and then we're in a position to go back to the commission with it. And it also saves what Adam is concerned about. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Karen. That was the charge of the subcommittee, was to present the plan of conservation and development. And until you get all of the comments incorporated, it's still in a draft format. And I do think that you guys, like Karen said, are charged with creating the plan of conservation and development, and that it wouldn't be up to the commission members.
I think the only thing I'd like to, I like that idea. The only thing I'd like to do is maybe actually, Adam, don't get mad here. I'd like to shorten up a couple of days here. In other words, just let's get people to Wednesday the 6th. That gives them
Okay.
a lot of work.
I'm fine with that. I just
think
chose Friday because it was Friday and because it was the July 4th holiday and people start going away. Literally, they go away Saturday.
Yep.
Some people are away for that whole week. It just gave a little more time.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that people will share top of mind thoughts rather than, send us a 6-page treatise on this. Because I think that would be important. But I think what I'd like to be able to do is to quickly turn things around to get to the committee so that depending on when the commission wants to meet, that we've had the chance to get everything organized. So I think just shorten that period up. I'll turn it around as fast as I can, and then we'd be in a position to get together at a time that works for everybody here.
Okay, Mark, are you on board with that?
Yeah, fewer the meetings, the better. Shorter the meetings, the better. All good.
Okay, I'm happy to do that. I'm certainly just not one to shirk responsibility, so I'm happy to carry this through. And Donna says I should, so that's all I'm going to do what she says until she.
Yeah.
Glenn, just a follow-up from earlier. Like, how would you recommend handling questions that are just, they're not really comments, they're just, which I'm sure we're going to get, open-ended, well, what does the plan say about affordable housing? We need more of that. How do you answer that question without going into, a half an hour discussion on what the plan says?
Yeah, no, I think that I try to do that in 30 seconds or less. Essentially, given the example you just gave of affordable housing, I'd say, for the past year or so, there's been a special committee in Kent working on this. We've also had organizations in town working on this for decades. The plan supports finding ways to create additional affordable units. And I understand from your comment that you support that effort.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and they go, oh, did I really say that?
Yeah, Well, that's it. If they don't, they can, but I think when the first couple of speakers, we get a chance to show people that we're listening, we're writing it down, and we're converting it to a statement or a comment, they get in that mode. And now it gets much more efficient later on. And so you may have somebody who wanders a little bit in terms of it, but I think, again, we try to bring them back on task, because I think it's kind to other people there participating in the meeting to try to move things along without being rude or brusque or anything else like that.
Kick ass.
Great. So, is there anything else that anybody wants to talk about the meeting on the 30th?
The question is, if I can go back just for a moment here,
Sure.
and the only reason I say that, where we go here? Because I do have a slide of next steps, and so I don't want it to be too clunky, but if we were just about to wrap up the meeting, I normally wouldn't do this before the comments. I would sort of bring it back at the end and say, the comments will be reviewed and considered by the subcommittee and the Planning and Zoning Commission. We're then going to revise and refine the plan, and then we're going to schedule a public hearing to consider adoption, and additional refinements may be made in the future based on additional comments that are received. So we're working in this direction, but no dates have been set yet. It's going to depend on what we hear tonight and hear in the future. And with that, thank you very much for participating.
Great.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm in.
sounds great.
I think it's very good, Glenn. I think your
Thank you.
presentation is
You're-
very good.
Thank you. I'm excited to see what we get for comments. I did get an email from Marty Connor. He was contacted by Lake Warmog Association. And they have some, apparently, things that they wanted to share, and they wanted a meeting with me. And I said, hang on, guys, we're at the stage right now where we're going to a public meeting on June 30th. So I'm not making the plan at this time. It's in the hands of the subcommittee and the commission. So please kind of get your comments together for the 30th. As part of the research investigation on the plan, I reached out to the task force, hang on, there's three groups.
Yeah,
The authority, the task force, and the association. And I think I didn't get any response from the association. So the fact that they're waking up late is, but again, I'd like to hear what their thoughts are. But that's the only thing I've heard other than our normal correspondence.
I think Marty just recently joined them,
Oh, good.
joined one of them. I mean, when he retired, he had said that he was going to try to stay involved, and I think this was a recent, for him to join. It just happened recently, and
Yeah,
and
well-
it's difficult to know who the players are, because, like you said, there's three different organizations, and I think that Jean is on one of them, and I don't know which one she's on. So.
So we'll have to figure out a mashup for task force, authority, and association, one word that kind of merges them all together.
Should we know who Marty is?
I'm sorry. Marty Connor is used to be the city planner in Torrington. He's been a planning consultant in Litchfield Hills region, Northwest Connecticut, and really around the state too, other places for many years. So
He was the land use administrator for Kent at one point in time.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
How long ago was that?
I think looking at applications and stuff, maybe late 70s, early 80s.
Oh,
His name shows up on applications and stuff. So he's a good guy. He's a good guy. He knows his business. Yeah.
well, it's nice to hear from people who know their business, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's nice that people here, have dialogue with people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Anything else, Glenn, that you think that we should cover?
I think we're good.
Donna?
Oh, I'm good. As I start getting stuff in, if stuff starts dribbling in before the 30th, I will share it with the subcommittee so that you are aware of some of the information that's being sent along. And then I copy it and I put it in a book. I have a book. So we're up to date on comments that we've received so far.
And so that won't go into the public meeting folder, right? For that meeting, it will be go in afterwards into a Google Docs or into our public meeting folders.
No, I can put it into the June 30th public meeting folder if you want.
I don't know whether that's appropriate, whether that's the right thing to do or not. I think it's public comment, right? So everybody should have access to it.
Yeah,
It's just a matter of when. You know, a lot of commissions are, you know, they're not publishing the work that they've got ongoing until it's in a format that's ready for public consumption. I'm not sure that I agree with that. So if you follow along with sort of my personal belief, I think it should go into the public folder as you get it. But I would be willing to listen to other comments.
that's usually what I do. You know, once I create the folder, at least for meetings, as I get information in, it gets dumped right in there so that it's always a live, active folder that you can always go to see what's in there.
That seems to me the most transparent thing. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
the most transparent and collaborative thing, and that's really what we're going for, right? That all of us can be looking to see what everybody else is doing and have comments on it, and I think we're stronger for it. So that's what I would lobby for.
We don't have to read all those letters in, correct?
No,
Oh, good.
Wes can make that choice, right? The chairman can make the
Yeah.
choice to read them in or not, and
Right.
there's precedent to say that we're not reading them in.
I know
Well,
that
you-
first letter
but-
by Mike, he never
I
actually
think-
intended on that being shared with.
This is not a legal
P&Z.
proceeding, so I think following Matt's comment that if the information is going to be in the public folder, then it's there for everybody to see. So I
Right.
think we would recognize it, but not take the 3 minutes it would take to read a letter or the 7 minutes or whatever, and just
Right.
kind of focus in on the flow of the conversation. We can ponder the written correspondence and even the things that come in late, we're going to put those in the folder as well. So everybody's going to see what we're seeing, and that's
Yeah.
going to be good.
yeah. I had asked Mike that question at one point in time, and his response to me was, as long as it's been in the public meeting folder, there is no reason to read it into the record. If it didn't make the public meeting folder for whatever reason, then you have the choice to read it into the record. So he said, as long as people have opportunity to see it, plenty of opportunity to see it, no reason to do so. So,
Okay.
okay.
Adam,
So I'll
did you
put
start
them,
to
as
say-
I get them, I'll put them in.
Adam, did you start to say something? Did you have a comment about that conversation?
No, I'm good. If we're not reading them, I'm fine.
Okay. Okay. You've had your say, you've had your opportunity to speak. All right, then. Then I think we're at a point where we would move to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, so thanks everybody for jumping on. Glenn, good luck. Nice to see you. I think the meeting on the 30th is going to go swimmingly.
You guys in 2 weeks?
Yep.
Okay.
in 2 weeks.
Okay,
Take care, everybody.
Take care. Bye.